Alright, so with 2.2 second half just around the corner, with it comes the brand new 5-star character Boothill, along with the long-awaited Fu Xuan rerun. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering which one they should go for, because as we have known, Fu Xuan is this broken and still is this broken preservation sustained character. And now as we know, Boothill is this new single target god that practically deletes everything he targets. And so this video is going to be going over the strengths and why both of them are really good, and then the decisions on whether you should summon for which one would be better for you, based on your account, and all that kind of stuff. I don't care if you're skipping both of them, you don't really have to tell me. This video is for people wondering between if you're skipping both of them or you're going for both of them, good for you. But this video is for the people that are torn between. Anyway, this is not my should you summon for Boothill, expect that in a separate video like I usually do. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Before I get to the video, drop a like, drop a sub, hit the bell icon for more videos like this, and let's get straight into the video. So I'm not going to read out their kit, I'm going to assume you generally or do just know what their kits are and what they do. But I will talk about parts of their kit and what makes them really good. So first let's talk about Boothill. So Boothill is this new hunt character that is relatively unique. He locks enemies into standoff and practically makes it to where he can only attack them and the enemy can only attack him, and the people in the standoff actually take increased damage. The whole way Boothill functions is actually breaking the enemy, being able to stack toughness reduction, and also deals more damage when the target is weakness broken. Once you do get them to that state and you do get to do the extra attack, his damage absolutely skyrockets, and I mean absolutely skyrockets. Just with the fan and the hammer, the hits themselves don't do that much. You can probably do up to like 30, 40, maybe 50k. And then once they get to the weakness broken point and you do the extra hit, that damage skyrockets all the way to like 500k plus. So Boothill is this character that really wants to weakness break the target and does have good break damage sources. Not only that, but his ultimate does let him apply physical weakness to the enemy for 2 turns. So there practically isn't an enemy in the game that can sort of stop his rampage, unless they are like the enemy Rodeo, which he has other enemies out and you have to kill them in order to actually unlock the bar to break. Enemies like that might prove to be a bit difficult, but if you can get around their mechanic and then you can hit them, even if they're not weak to physical, you now can implant it, and now you absolutely delete them off the game. So as you can tell, he's mainly a character you want to build with break effect, but the game actually rewards you for building him with break effect and gives you crit rate and crit damage corresponding to more break effect you have. Giving you up to 30% crit rate and a whopping 150% crit damage is very, very, very good. So he doesn't sort of have the issue where he has no break damage or crit, so his actual damage output seems like it's really good, but is actually really weak. Thankfully, that is not the case. He deals a bunch of damage via his crits, and he also does have innate break damage, allowing him to have very, 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 very high damage output. So again, to sort of reiterate, Boothill is this very, very high DPS output hunt character that locks enemies into duels, making it to where they can only attack each other, primarily wants to break the enemy to deal massive damage, and can also implant his own typing weakness, being physical. And now let's sort of talk about why Fu Xuan is really broken. So thankfully it is very easy to understand what she does. Literally everything she brings to your team is practically beneficial for almost every single character in the game. Having her matrix up pretty much makes it to where your entire team takes less damage because she mitigates it and actually directs it towards herself. So let's say you're running someone like Fu Xuan with Zele. Let's say you're fighting an enemy Bronia and the enemy Bronia shoots your Zele. That damage gets mitigated and actually gets converted to Fu Xuan. So you're sort of spreading out this damage between 2 characters because Fu Xuan mitigates the damage, so you're taking a lot less damage than you normally would. Not only that, but she does give your entire team max HP and crit rate, and a lot of it at that. So her skill is mitigating damage, it's now also giving you max HP for more survivability, and also giving you crit rate. Not only that, but Fu Xuan does have this thing where she can have up to 2 charges, and if you do go below 50% HP, Fu Xuan practically just restores up to 90% of the amount she is currently missing. So anytime you do end up taking too much damage, say if you get hit by a hard AoE, assuming it doesn't absolutely one-shot you, if you are living and you have a charge, she restores up to 90% of that HP back, which practically leaves her to be immortal. And it's very easy to get that too because you get 1 charge by just going into battle, and the other way you get it is by using her ultimate, and with the proper build, it's very, very easy to get her ultimate within 2 to 3 uses of the skill, or just a few basic attacks, so it's really easy to have uptime on the charges just in case things get bad. And you thought I was done, but no, she still heals your team with their ultimate being used. Granted, not as much because she's not an abundance character, but she still provides you a little bit of healing, which can come in very clutch. And she also does have a team-wide crowd control debuff resistance that is like practically active for 1 time of the skill, and every time you do use the skill again, it will reset that. So you're getting even more. So again, to reiterate, not only are you getting a matrix that does mitigate damage and directs it towards her, not only does that skill give your entire team max HP based off her own and crit rate, not only does she have easy to get charges, that when she does fall below 50% HP, restores up to 90% of it. Not only does she heal your team with using ultimate, but she also can resist crowd control debuffs every time per skill. So as you see, she does have a lot to bring to the table. She makes it really hard for your team to die. Practically the only thing that kills Fu Xuan is a very hard-hitting AoE. A prime example is, let's say you're in Conundrum 12 and you're fighting the two robot things, I don't actually remember the names, and the fat one does this big AoE, jumps on you, and you don't have any sort of other reductions besides Fu Xuan stuff. Let's say you're running a different path. That move will absolutely delete your Fu Xuan. So that's the only place she kind of struggles. And now, let's sort of talk about whether you should, or which one you should choose, I should say, to summon for. So a lot of this actually does very much depend on player to player. Depends on what characters you have currently, what setups, all that kind of stuff, your willingness for investment on teams, all that kind of stuff. Let's start with Boothill. So the number one way I do recommend going for Boothill instead of Fu Xuan is if you do have 2 sustains already for your account that are good. If you have someone like Aventurine and Fu Xuan or Luocha, or let's say you have Jeopard with a very good build, sort of like that, and you are just good on the sustain portion for your 2 teams, then the urge to summon for Boothill there is a lot better because you're not needing Fu Xuan for your other team because you already have both sustain parts for both teams covered. Another thing to consider for Boothill is if you do have a team ready for him. So his best partner is Ruan Mei, and if you have Ruan Mei, I'm sure you have her built. So you'd have his best partner right there. Past that would be depending on what other characters you have. Can you slot in someone like the Harmony Trailblazer, or especially do you have a built Bronia to sub on the team? And then do you have a proper sustain for that team? And if you don't, are you willing to build them, or do you even have them in your box? And that's sort of what you want to consider for that. And the final thing you want to consider is how many DPSs do you currently have built on your account? If you already have an account with, let's say, something like Acheron, Jing Lamao, a well-built Doctor Ratio, well-built Blade, just kind of that, if you do just have 2 to 3, up to 4, 5, 6, whatever, how many amount of well-built DPSs, and you already have teams for them, then you aren't really needing another DPS, and you can save this currency to spend on someone else you might need. Like, again, if you need another sustained character, or if you need another Harmony support, or a different DPS that suits different needs, then by all means you want to consider that. Again, it really just comes down to the willingness of how you are willing to build him compared to other characters on your account, and then if you have the teammates, setups, and all that kind of stuff for him. And now for Fu Xuan, it's a lot easier to say, because Fu Xuan is a universal unit that works on literally every single team in the game except the dot team, where she still does work on the dot team, because she still does provide really good survivability. So for Fu Xuan, to consider her over anyone else would mainly be, the number one question is if you don't have 2 sustains. If you look at your account and you have maybe 1 sustain, or maybe you have no sustains. If your only sustains is something like Bailu and Natasha, or like Link's Bailu, then all means I do 100% recommend getting Fu Xuan. I am an advocate for someone that does say your first goal should be getting a good, well-built, sustained character. Because while a damage dealing character is going to be really good and beneficial, you can't really deal damage when you're dead. So I 100% do recommend chasing a sustain first to avoid that problem. So again, look at your account. If you don't have 2 well-built sustain or just 2 good sustains in general, I definitely would recommend picking up Fu Xuan as a premium sustain because she is insanely broken. So if you do have something like you have a lot of DPSs, so you don't really need Boothill, but you do sort of need a better sustain, then Fu Xuan is easily the pick you should do. And that practically is the only reason. Because again, now you have a sustain that again can slot into practically every single team, so you're good for that sustained portion. And now this is going to be grouped into one part because I'm going to go really quickly about this, because there isn't really a reason to explain this into depth, because it practically just contradicts everything I said. So for the reasons to not summon, which again practically is mentioned, Boothill, the ways you skip him is if you don't have the teammates at all on your account, or you are not willing to build them, or you also just already have enough DPSs and you don't really need a second team for him. AKA, you just don't need a DPS or any of your teams. You already have 2 set teams, say 1 Acheron team, 1 follow-up team, something like that. And then again, as I just mentioned, if you have the teammates and you're not willing to build them, then that's a big issue, so don't bother. Or you just don't have them on your account, so again, don't bother there. For Fu Xuan, again, if you already have 2 sustains on your account, then you don't really have to bother because you already are being sustained properly. So having something like Aventurine, Fu Xuan, or Aventurine, Luocha, or well-built Jeopard, all that kind of stuff, if you already have 2 sustains for both your teams, or let me fix what I said there, if you have a sustain for both your teams, then you don't really need Fu Xuan because you already have the sustained character for that team, so you don't really need to summon for another one. And yeah, that is practically it. Let me know what you guys are going to be choosing. I thankfully already have a Fu Xuan, so I'm going to be going for Boothill. Even if I didn't have Fu Xuan, I probably would have went for Boothill first. Even though I have enough sustains and I have enough DPSs, I'm a gambling addict. As you guys do know, Aventurine runs through my bloods. So I'm definitely picking up Boothill. But again, let me know what you guys are going to be picking. That's all I got to say. Peace out.